Hey, gorgeous! Welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast with Holly Wharton, which combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business. This podcast features solo shows with Holly and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now, here's your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 144. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with today's special guest, Halona Black. Halona is the founder of digitalwellpublisher.com, which is an educational media and training company focused on challenging coaches, speakers, and leaders to unveil their brilliance and take center stage. Halona teaches visionary entrepreneurs to create books, blogs, and other media that result in targeted clientele, speaking engagements, and increased profits. She is also the executive producer and host of the Digital Well Publisher podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher, where she interviews high-achieving authorpreneurs and experts to discover the tools and strategies they use to grow their business. Welcome, Halona.
Thank you so much, Holly.
I'm very excited to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today working with authorpreneurs, because I know you've got a few books of your own out there.
Yeah, it's not a direct route at all.
It never is it?
But my career, actually, when I got out of college, I had majored in video production and communication, and I actually wanted to create documentaries. Ooh. And I actually did get a job in New York working with a big news agency there working on documentaries. And I loved the work in doing that, but I didn't care for the business. Mm. So I did what many young people do. They joined the Peace Corps.
Oh, you did? I wanted to do that so badly and I never did it. Where did you go?
I wound up going to a small country in West Africa by the name of Togo.
Oh, wow. How was that?
I loved it. I had such a wonderful time. It was really a place where I feel like I grew up there. Mm. And Togolese people are such wonderful people. They took such great care of me while I was away for 2 years. And so in doing that work in Togo, I really learned a lot about community development and just working on things that were more mission-centered. Mm-hmm. And so I took that with me when I came home. I actually came home a little bit after 9/11. And so I was living in the New York, New Jersey area at the time, and there really just weren't a lot of jobs. Mm. So I wound up moving to Washington, D.C., which, of course, has, a high concentration of organizations that are, nonprofits and government agencies and a lot of other places that are mission-centered. For about 12 years, I found myself working in nonprofits, and I got into education of adult students, which is a lot of what I did when I was in Togo. Mm-hmm. I worked on, literacy projects and working in community colleges, and even still continued on working on some international development projects. So I got to work on projects with folks in Afghanistan and Haiti. Ooh. And lots of other exciting places. But after a while, I kind of started to get burnt out from working in places where you're constantly feeling like you're having to give all the time. Mm-hmm. And you're working on projects where there's a lot of that are mostly run on grants. Mm-hmm. And, so you always feel like you're running around, just trying to take care of other people on very limited means. And I started to fall into my own sort of a depression of sorts. Mm-hmm. And around that time, I was also going through a divorce. I was going through, I had left a PhD in education program, which was a big decision for me. My mom had passed away from breast cancer at the age of 49. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot going on. Yeah. And I really just wanted to do something else that I felt like was really going to be a little bit more interesting for me, something that would get me excited about work again. And so I wound up starting a blog, which is always very popular.
That seems to be like the source of so many businesses. It's like you just think it's an innocent little blog and then it just blossoms into this whole thing.
Yeah. And the blog was really It was called Garlic and Lemons, and really it was more of a personal journal of how it is that I wanted to get through my own personal issues that I was going through. I had a surgery for uterine fibroids as well, and I wrote about how it is that I was able to start to learn how to heal myself and live a better life through better eating and exercise and just trying new things again. And I absolutely love that blog. And a lot of the work that I did actually it grew rather quickly. And so people from all over the world, women from all over the world, were asking me questions about, more natural ways of dealing with uterine fibroids. And, they were telling me, their personal stories of what they've been going through. And they wanted me to write a book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I've been a writer. I've always been a writer, but, I'd never really written a book.
And that's no small task. Please, can you write a book? I just want to hear your story.
Yeah, they wanted a book that was going to be, something that would be useful for them. Because I had stuff in my blog where, stuff, but it was scattered.
Yeah.
And they really wanted like some sort of a program or something that they could just sort of purchase and take with them, wherever they were, and just get the steps that they needed to take. And so I gave myself a challenge after about a year of writing this blog. And I said that within 3 weeks, I was going to have the book. And what I did was I announced it to my email list. I said, I'm going to have this book. This is the title of it. You can pre-order it.
Ooh.
And I just wanted to test it out. I guess I didn't really trust that people would actually buy it.
Well, you jumped into the fire right there, didn't you?
I did. And what actually happened was that people actually started buying it right away as soon as I sent out the email, which was shocking to me. And that really sort of changed my whole outlook of myself and my ability to be able to earn money on my own. I had always sort of flirted with the idea of being an entrepreneur. But I never really knew anybody who was an entrepreneur and didn't really know, did I have any sort of special skills that I could use to be able to make money? And I started to say, oh, well, maybe this would be it. And so that was really how I got started into the whole book writing thing.
That's also probably got to make the book writing process easier because not only have you committed, you've sold copies of the book. So not only do people want it, but they've paid for it. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's really one of the things that I talk to people about is you got to have some sort of an audience. It's preferable if you have some sort of an audience of people that you can actually ask and they can tell you what to write about before you actually write the book.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. Because I think so many people just think, oh, I'm going to write a book about whatever I feel like writing about.
Which is great. You can
Which
do
is
that.
good. Exactly. And that serves a purpose. You might need to get stuff off your chest and share your story. But I think it's a very different process when you actually ask people, what do you want? And then you deliver that.
Absolutely.
I love that. And so since then, you've gone on to write a couple more books, haven't you?
Yeah, I've actually ghostwritten some books for other people. Actually, when I wrote that health book, that book in itself, it actually got me into writing recipes. And so I learned the whole process of writing recipes sort of off the cuff.
Wow.
And it's totally random. Never any intention in my life to be able to, sit down and write recipes.
Well, your blog was called Garlic and Lemon, so I don't know. There's some food elements in there.
Yeah. And that work led to me teaching cooking classes and things like that and writing recipes for places like Whole Foods. And I actually got a consultancy working with a public school system in New York. But after a while, I had to figure out a way for me to be able to create more steady income from that. And so that was where freelance writing came into the picture for me. And as a freelance writer, I didn't have anything other than my blog and my book. And so I used my book as sort of like a writing sample for other people who were looking for help with their writing. And, lo and behold, it worked.
Excellent.
yeah, so people were asking me to ghostwrite books for them. These were, oftentimes other coaches, sometimes doctors, and other types of health and wellness professionals who just needed someone to help them to bring their creative project to fruition. Mm-hmm. And so I helped them to write their books. I've also written a couple of other sort of how-to books on writing your own ebook series and things like that.
So that's got to be really challenging, ghostwriting, because you've got your own natural voice, but you've kind of got to write in someone else's voice. So
right.
What's that process like?
Well, you know what? It depends. Everyone is different. Mm-hmm. There are some people who could just sort of email me what it is they want, and then they can just sort of let me, go with it. I can do all the background research and just sort of put together some sort of a book for them. Mm-hmm. And then there are other people who are a little bit more serious about their persona that they put out there into the world, and they want more of their voice into the book as opposed to just a general book about, how-to tips on how to live your best life, that right. sort of a thing. And so that requires doing things like interviews where you're working with the coach and asking them very specific questions about, perhaps their background story, why it is that they do what they do, those sorts of questions where I can sort of really get into who they are and what it is that they'd like to accomplish through writing a book. So it can really depend.
Excellent. Oh, that sounds very interesting. So we're here today to talk about your top tips on how to create your signature book and how this can impact your business. So let's talk a little bit about what the heck is a signature book, first of all.
Yeah. A signature book is a book that really represents who you are and what it is that you're doing at this moment in time in your life, in your business. So it's less of that, that really quick, maybe, the ebooks that people put out as sort of to get people on their email list where, it's quick 7 tips or that sort of a thing. And this is a little bit longer. We're getting more into your personal story. That you have some sort of a hook or some sort of a backstory as to why it is that you needed to write this book at this time. And really just give a little bit more information about who they are and what it is that they want to achieve in their business.
Okay. So it's kind of like your signature program, but in book format.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how can entrepreneurs who have maybe never written a book before, and the most they've written is a blog post, which is a lot easier than writing a book because it's a lot shorter. How can entrepreneurs who have never had experience writing a book go about the process of creating their signature book? How does this work?
Well, it helps to be able to work with someone else who can sort of help you to figure out what the story is that you want to tell. I'm a developmental editor, and what that means is I help people with those big ideas that they want to be able to work with. Because what often happens is that people who want to write books, they have, 3, 5, 10 different ideas in different directions that they can go to with a book. But it's really important that you sort of pare that down into one salient idea that people are actually going to buy. Because that first book that you write is going to be the thing that people are always going to remember you for. Even though now I help other people with books, I still have people hitting me up in my Facebook inbox asking me for help with their uterine fibroids. And, I don't necessarily do that much of that anymore. I just sort of refer them to the book. But they remember, several years from before when I was always talking about it on the internet. And now that they have this particular problem or they know someone who has that problem, they still remember all of that talk that I did on the internet and they come to me for it. So it's really important that you have someone who can help you to pare down all of those big ideas that you have into one salient idea so that you can at least have a guide on where it is that you want to go with your book.
I think that's an excellent idea because I think especially entrepreneurs who've been doing their thing for at least a couple of years, you've worked with so many different clients on maybe so many different issues, and you've got your niche, you've got your thing that you do, but it can be really difficult to organize all that into something that's coherent and focused enough to be a successful book.
Right, right.
So once someone has worked with you or someone else to get clear on this topic, do you recommend that they do what you did and pre-sell the book and make that big commitment? Or what do you think is the next best step to make sure that they're writing the best topic for their clients or potential clients?
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to, if they're working with me on a more long-term basis, we actually talk about building what's called that author platform and to discover, do you actually know what people actually want? Because some people, they have, some sort of a presence, but, they haven't really built a relationship with people where they are talking with people on a regular basis. They just have an idea of what they think might sell. And for them, it might be a little bit more important to spend some more time on building that author platform. But then for others who may already have that relationship, then the next most logical step for them will be to take that original idea and just start to put that into some sort of a written form, like an outline. And putting their story in there. Why is this the perfect time for you to be able to tell this story right now? And really just think about where it is that you would like to be able to take people through in this book. What do you want them to learn about you and what it is that you offer by the time they get to the end of this book? Do you want them to join your program? Do you want to be known as an expert on your particular topic? Are you interested in getting more, speaking engagements and all that stuff? All of those things need to be really thought through in the very beginning stages of writing your book.
I think that's really, really important. Now let's go back just a second and talk a little bit about the author platform, because I think some of our listeners might not be familiar with that term. How is that different from what someone may already be doing in their business to build a platform?
Well, it could be also known as like a speaker platform or just a general platform. Because I work with authors, I call it an author platform. Yeah. It's really it starts off with what your particular message is in your business, and taking that message and deciding how it is that you would like to be able to work with people. And then, of course, you have certain spaces, online. How is it that you want to attract people to your message? That's really what your platform is. And it's very similar to, if you think about politics. Politicians, when they're running for a presidency or any sort of office, they have a platform themselves, and they build their platform on certain issues. It's very similar for an author. You figure out what's your message and how it is that you're going to be able to attract people to your message. And then, of course, on top of how it is that you're going to attract people to your message, that's when you start talking about, okay, well, do you have a website with an email list that you can build? Do you have certain social media channels that you're going to focus on and actually, utilize on a regular basis to attract your target market? Are you going to start some sort of a media platform for yourself, whether you're using YouTube or a podcast or, using live streaming to talk to more people and teach people about what it is you do? So that really is what building an author platform is about. It starts with your message, and then you think about how it is that you want to create this buzz around what it is that you do.
And presumably that, of course, takes time. So that's maybe something that you want to be starting at the same time that you're starting to write your book, rather than leaving it to the end.
Right. Absolutely.
Excellent. Now, what about the process of writing the book? Is this kind of a full-time job where you stop everything and focus on the book, or do you do it a little bit as you go, running your regular business? What do you recommend?
Well, my signature book program is actually a 3-month-long program. And people spend, anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a week on writing their book. Some people take a little bit longer. But it does require, writing a book absolutely does require taking the time. And you don't need to let go of everything else that you're doing in your business. But it does require that you make actual space in your life to get it done. The same as you would if, you wanted to lose weight. or, if you wanted to cook more often, or if you want to spend more time with your kids, you actually have to make the time in your schedule to actually do this writing. Otherwise, it'll never get done.
Right. Now, I know this question is kind of how long is a piece of string, but how many hours? I needed to preface it with that because you're gonna know what I'm gonna say next. How many hours do you think people need to put into their schedule when they're thinking about writing, a business book?
I would say anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour daily.
Okay.
Daily. It's got to be daily. And the reason why I say daily is because sometimes, we'll say, all right, well, I'm going to start on Saturday. And, you put down, 2 hours at a time. You may or may not do those 2 hours. And, and then you sort of tire yourself out. And then they don't get back to it for another 3 or 4 days or, weeks sometimes at a time because other stuff came up. So I say if you do it in little chunks at a time on a daily basis or every other day, I know we're all busy and we sort of fit these things in where we can, but just some sort of a regular schedule where you'll know that you'll have the time to focus on writing your book, whether you're getting up an hour early in the morning or you're staying up an hour later after everyone's gone to bed. Or some people, they still have a day job, and so they'll use their lunch hour, or part of it anyway, to be able to write. It's just so long as you're doing it on a regular basis. Some progress is better than no progress at all.
Yeah. And I think that's very important what you said about doing it every day. It's kind of like going to the gym or exercise, If we're not used to writing on a regular basis, it kind of takes a while to build that writing muscle and the focus that you need to get those words out of your head and onto the computer.
Right.
So when it comes time to release the book, are you an advocate of self-publishing, traditional publishing? What do you recommend people do?
Well, I work in the space of self or independent publishing, which means that all the tools and technology that you need are really at your fingertips. And one of the things that's really great about working with me is that you don't have to go anyplace else to find other pieces of the self-publishing process. So that would be, proofreaders, copy editors, cover designers, people who do the layout of the book. All of that stuff they get when they invest in working in the 90-day signature book program with me. So one of the things that people find really frustrating about publishing their own book is that there's just so many people that you have to go through to figure out, who's the best person for me to be able to work with. Particularly when it comes to like editors and cover design. How do you vet people? How do you even know if they're any good? So I sort of taken that guesswork out for them. And at the very same time, I don't deal with things like, your royalties. Yeah. Your royalties from your book, like you might get with some other what's called vanity publishers. Where you sort of sign up with an organization. They tell you, we're going to do all of this with your book, and they make it feel like they're your personal publisher. Yeah. When really they're paid to print and give you marketing materials for your book. So you'll get 100 copies of your book that you don't know how to sell. Yeah. And then you've got these bookmarks and other leaflets and things that you just don't know how to use. And then they'll take a portion of your royalties as well sometimes. Yeah. And so since I'm such a big believer in the self-publishing process and what it can do for entrepreneurs, I just say, this is what my costs are up front. And then, whatever you make from the sale of your book, and, we work on the marketing process as well. Whatever you make from the sale of your book is yours.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to go about it because it's just very upfront and transparent. I think that it should be natural for entrepreneurs to be more drawn towards the self-publishing model because you get to choose your editor, you get to choose your cover designer, you get to choose your proofreader, you get to choose, all the people that you want to work with. Whereas if you're going for the traditional publishing model, you're stuck with whatever they give you. I mean, you might have some say in the cover, but you might not.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's also a very long process.
Oh, God.
It could be a year to 2 years before your book actually hits the market.
Yes.
And for a lot of us, we just don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Your business might have evolved into something else in 2 years.
Yeah,
You might be focused on something totally different. I know my business has changed from 2 years ago to now. So.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think time is really of the essence for entrepreneurs who want to write a book. And I think I completely agree with you that self-publishing is the way to go, especially for your first couple of books, I think.
Right. And then, and it's not that I think that anything is wrong with, looking for a traditional publishing deal. It's just that a lot of people think it'll happen a lot easier and quicker than what it actually happens.
And it does not happen easily and quickly.
Very easily. And, they think they're going to get this big upfront payment. But, for most people, it's just a few $1,000s. Yeah. And I can't live on a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, not only that, I think people have unreasonable expectations of how much marketing the publisher is going to do for you. And I know from traditionally published authors that I know personally as friends, they're very frustrated with how little marketing their publisher actually does for them.
Yeah. So they might do a little bit of a push when the book comes out for the first month. But after that, you're pretty much on your own.
Yeah.
And that's why that whole author platform thing in the very beginning becomes very, very important for you. Because if you don't have that, already in place, it becomes very difficult to be able to sell a book that nobody knows about.
Exactly. Yes. Because your book is just one of thousands on Amazon. It's not like people are just going to be cruising around looking for the next book to read and go, oh, look at that. I'll get that. The odds of it coming up are very slim unless you know exactly what you're doing and you've got that platform. So, Halona, thank you so much for sharing your tips with us. I think writing a book is so, so important. And I think so many entrepreneurs could benefit from writing a book. So this is just really important stuff to get out there. Do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women entrepreneurs who inspire you?
Actually, you know what? She's not she's not a woman who teaches other people to start a business, but she has I call a health empire that I really looked to when I first started my work, or at least when I started blogging. Her name is Queen Afua. That's Queen Afua, if people are interested in looking her up. One of the first books that she wrote was the book called Heal Thyself. And it's really focused on helping women and working on womb health, and just taking some of the basics of nutrition and spirituality, and really learning how to take better care of yourself as a woman. And since she's written that first book, she really has this whole empire of other books that she's written, and she's taken those books and she's turned them into programs. She has various nutritional and health products, and she does retreats on cruises and various places around the world. And I love her because of the model of business that she has shown to me, and particularly when I at a point where doctors and other people, they really just weren't giving me the information that I really wanted to hear as far as natural health and healing. But it was a miracle to be able to find her book in a bookstore, and to be able to have all of this other information about natural health that at least no one else in my life was really talking about. And so even now I just look at her whole business model as something that has really, it's more than just a way for her to be able to make money, but she's really helping women to save their own lives. And so, and I think that's just super powerful.
Great. Well, she will be in the show notes then for anyone who wants to check her out.
Wonderful.
Sounds wonderful. So, Halona, how can other women entrepreneurs work with you? What's the best place to get started?
Well, you can find me on my website at digitalwell, publisher.com. And they can sign up for my 7-day best-selling author platform challenge. So if they want to get the the bare basics of what it takes to be able to build an author platform, that's the place to go. Mm-hmm. And I also have a Facebook group attached to that as well. And then, of course, they can also find me on Twitter at Halona Black. Mm-hmm. That's HALONA BLACK. And I've also gotten a lot into Periscope as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think you've given us some really practical tips on how to get started with the signature book.
Oh, thank you. This is a lot of fun.
Good. I had fun too. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/144 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed at hollywharton.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you.